The journey of the play started long before the first production, actually, because I originally wrote the play for Soho Theatre in London when I was writer in residence there in 2003. They were unsure where I was going with it, and as I was at the time, I did a few drafts for them, and each time the kind of play itself sort of changed its identity. Every draft was completely different to the last, which I think understandably confused them a little bit, although at least it was kind of appropriate for the play as it turned out. But they did a reading of the play after about 18 months, and after that decided not to produce it. And I then took the play to all the other new writing theatre companies in London, all of whom either rejected it or just didn't get back to me. And that blew a hole in my finances. I was sort of signing on and off the dole, doing bits and pieces of teaching, hoping that this play would get picked up and a commission fee would come along. And when it didn't, I had to go off and retrain. So I went off and started a PGCE, which is a teacher training course, and started teaching A-level drama in a college in North London. Seriously underestimated what would be required on a PGCE. And of teaching in general, and I had a miserable time on this teacher training course, and it was in the middle of that course that I got a call from the Arts Council, which is the main state funding body of the arts in the UK, saying that How to Disappear had won that year's John Whiting Award, which is one of two big playwriting awards they used to run. I'd actually entered it myself for the award about a year beforehand and kind of forgotten. They took so long to judge it that year that I just assumed that I hadn't got it. And then this call came out of the blue in the middle of this teacher training course, saying that I'd won the award, which came with some money. So I was able to quit the course and go back to writing full time. But then I was in a really strange position because I had a play on my hands, which was an award-winning play. It started to get a lot of interest from the press because the arts press in particular, theatre journalists were ringing me up, doing kind of award-winning play slips through the fingers of all our theatre companies kind of stories, and commissioned me to write a big feature for The Guardian about the kinds of challenges that new writers face in getting unusual or ambitious play ideas commissioned. And How to Disappear is certainly that. Anyway, I was in the funny position then of having this play, this award-winning play, which none of the theatres in London would then put on because they'd all turned it down before and they weren't going to change their minds just because it had won an award. So in the end, it ended up falling into the very capable hands of a director called Ellie Jones, who was working at Sheffield Theatres at that time. Sheffield's in the north of England, and I hadn't targeted the non-London venues with it at that point. But it very happily ended up with Ellie, and she did a fantastic production in Sheffield Theatre Studio in 2006, and we sold out, got rave reviews, but it was only in 2008 when we got a transfer down to London, was because Ellie became head of Southwark Playhouse down in London. So it was really her as an individual director championing the play that got it both its Sheffield and London productions. The funny little sideline to this was that Nick Hearn Books, my publisher, published the text to coincide with the Sheffield production, and that started selling like hotcakes because I think the play had got so much attention that people wanted to know about it. But a 3-week run in a sort of regional theatre studio, sold out as it was, still only a few thousand people. And I started to develop this relationship with readers, almost like bypassing the theatre industry, and people who'd read the play. And I still get emails about it all the time. But happily, it's had an amazing afterlife. It was picked up by Portland Centre Stage in Oregon for its American premiere in 2009. It's also been on in Australia and New Zealand. Someone's translating it into Italian. It's had a second production in Chicago. The LA production at Boston Court will be its third. It's going to be on in Washington sometime later this year, I think. And my publisher tells me that it's in their top 10 most amateur performed plays. And it's really popular with students and particularly university theatre groups over here. I think it must be all the identity angst. But anyway, it's had a very happy afterlife, and it's a funny thing looking back because it sort of feels simultaneously like the play that ended my career and also revived it at the same time. But it's all come good, and I'm very excited to see the latest production in LA and what Nancy Keystone does with it, who I'm really excited to be working with.